In this quick video, I would like to talk about how we could approach stylizing or rendering materials and concepts, considering also that we will later do 3D modeling and rendering. I have a set of examples. Some are really good, some are not so good. Let's take a look at this one. It's a nice exterior sketch, kind of messy, but we can see there are trees, some vegetation, human figures for scale, and these lines are horizontal. Looks maybe like some sort of outside exterior siding, maybe wood or something. Let's go to this one. That one looks, let's agree on, killer. That's really nice. I learned how to do this when I was a student, 2000. It's basically a colored pencil, gouache on colored paper, some marker lines. Amazing. But also very time consuming. If we go to here, take a look at this furniture sketch or rendering. We close the eyes, we open it, we can see everything. Okay, so it's a furniture piece, 2 doors, 3 doors, some horizontal vertical marker lines, kind of quick, a little bit messy, some wiggle lines. Oh, this is actually a wood material. Done. I said done because we understood everything. Now I can make this drawing look more like this, but would I understand more? No, and that is actually my main intent of this video. This is not a case against doing drawings this way or learning how to draw this way. It's a beautiful art, a beautiful skill. It can also be very personalized because every stroke I really do by hand. 3D rendering today, the problem is too quickly can stuff just look like even a particular render engine. But again, this takes time. And the main question here I would like to point is when we sketch and identify materials, why do we do this? To create a rendering, like a feeling for how something will look? Well, I would do this via 3D rendering anyway. I do sketch to explore design and communicate ideas. And for that, stuff like this is simply sufficient. Here, if we take a look at the wooden floor, it's just some marker lines to give color variation, then the lines and horizontal vertical to identify the individual wooden planks, some crazy wiggle lines. Look how incorrect that stuff is. Totally chaotic. Wrong. Now one could say not realistic, but it doesn't matter. We see this is a wooden floor. These white lines are highlights. These black dots are shadows. Even here, think about what your mind thinks and what it puts in. We have some lines and then angled. Obviously, the shadow line really helps. And then this all is framed with some lines. And oh, this is a blanket. No? Done. The idea of highlight and shadow lines also applied here to the couch to show their folds. No? Okay. So I hope you start seeing kind of like where I try to go towards. The reason why I paired also this compared to these two images is just to show you if you don't have the skill and you use the wrong colors and you don't watch your perspective, you can spend a lot of time on, well, something that is just not adequate. Colors are wrong, perspective is wrong, and honestly, it's just overkill, besides not being executed well. Someone like this is very simplified, but in terms of communicating the concept, the idea, when talking with a client, perfect, sufficient. But how do we get to there? No, because it's all nice to listen to my videos, but we have to be able to replicate this. First, it's really good to take photos, because at photos we could study, we could crop, and then really look at details. Drawing wooden veneers or grit out of your memory can be difficult. So here I have now 2 layers. Let me here zoom in, and then we just sketch few planks, for example. And I just follow kind of like the way how this looks. Because the reason why I stress this is we have maybe preconceived ideas how stuff should look like. But sometimes that's not the way then how we would draw it. Or let me say this way, the way how we would draw it is not the way how it should look. And there you can see simply by looking at something. Here I have the cathedrals, a little bit less crazy. I can put down the wooden planks. Here I'm just identifying the gap a little bit more to add more contrast. Yeah, and there you start seeing actually the wooden floors popping out. Very quick, not very clean. And that is basically the main takeaway. Also here you see the highlights of the and the shadow line going back to what you see here. Right there. Very simplified. When you Google materials, you can find a lot of marker exercises. And marker exercises are very good tutorials to follow. And what you would normally do with marker on paper, we can just do digitally. So for example, here with this stone, now here is just, I put some marker lines down. Let's say there. Okay, good. And then I take a pen and start adding dots, maybe different sizes. So key here is variation and quantity. If I rush it, it might not really be that good. Maybe a different color too, so it's not all the same. Maybe some bright dots too. Yeah, and then over time, this will look like, oh, stone. Because this is essentially how you can simulate stone, just dots. The concrete, sorry, not the concrete, the marble is actually also quite interesting. So instead of the the marker, we could maybe use watercolor. Let's see, maybe. Okay, there we are. Oh, way too strong. Let's maybe make this less visible. There, oh, the stroke is also too big. I make this there a little bit smaller there. And then maybe a different color. So maybe like warm like this. So we compose it. So you see, you get this diffuse, swimmy, milky look. And then for the lines, yeah, let's use maybe soft or hard pencil and darker color, the correct size. And then it's all about the veins, putting the stuff down. Yeah, and if you compare, actually it's pretty close. Again, the trick is really going to be trying to identify the building elements of a material and replicating that. What you want to prevent is something like this. Make clean grids and you put a lot of labor work in, and then it still looks very forced. This is actually pretty cool, again, to show you it's not about perfection. It's more about trying to replicate natural imperfection and quantity. You hear me talking a lot about quantity because very often that really is one of the key elements to make things look good for your brain, because I'm going to say that you give so much information that your brain will stop looking at the imperfection of an individual single line, but more looks at everything as a whole, as a big composition. And that wood looks really, really good. Also here, this looks really nice. There, the veneer or so. Now it's many different lines, different colors, different thicknesses. Something like this is really well rendered out. I just thought to show this too, how much you can spend time on it, also with the highlights, etc. But then again, we're getting to something like this, and something like that will simply be sufficient. Which also goes back to the last tip I would like to give. Now with color palettes, how do we find colors? So you see these shapes here. And every concept painter or artist purposely is creating their own palette. And you want to be able to reuse the palette, resample the palette. We know when we click on the color wheel, we have all the Copics colors. And they're kind of cool, but I find them sometimes limiting. But then there's the eyedropper. You can hit the eyedropper, then you move around and you pick a color you would like. And then I draw a shape. Let's do this again. Maybe this one. One more time. Maybe this bright one. There. And for the grout. There. Cool. And now when I, let's say, want to color a wall that looks like bricks, now you see here how it's just different gray colors. I could then sample for each individual stroke I do colors from these pre-selected swatches. And then this way I do not have to remix the colors all the time. I can simply reuse these colors. Cool. Okay. Very good. This basically is all what I wanted to show. Again, stones we can simulate simply via dots, various sizes and colors, granite, airbrush, and like the soft or hard pencil vein lines. Wooden floors we can simulate via marker lines and then the planks. Stones we could basically do the same, it's just then the size or the spacing of the lines is different. And if we would like to do something with wood, then basic marker lines is fine too, and just some simplified lines for the wood grain. And then if you have more time, if you want, we can add some type of reflections or highlights on it. You see here, this is a very common technique at an angle to the object to put something down here too. This always gives the idea of a highlight or reflection. This can then go onto different layers. This is also all shown in color. And I would like you to also try to do this just black and white or even no color, but just try to simulate materials just via dots or lines, etc. Because then you will see you can get really far in black and white drawings just by using lines, dots, and patterns to simulate various materials. And that's it.